Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Urban Wellness Advocacy Podcast. My name is Dr. Ben Glass. Today I'm making a connection with Frank Clayton. Frank, can you get us started by just introducing yourself and maybe just sharing a little bit about your background, your experience working in the community, what you've been up to as a professional these last 10, 15 years?
Absolutely, man. Pleasure. Appreciate you having me. All that good stuff. I'm Coach Frank Clayton, performance psychology coach, and a former personal trainer. Been doing that work for about 12 years, community wellness, all that great stuff. Recently moved into the scope of mindset and behavioral change as a performance psychology coach.
That's fascinating. Can we kind of just like unpack that a little bit? Because performance psychology, are we talking about for athletes? Are we talking about for business professionals? Are we talking about for mom or dad who has so many different things that they're, so many balls that they're juggling? I'm curious if you could kind of just talk about maybe who you've worked with in the past and who you're currently working with, and then who you aim to work with in the near future.
It's funny you say that because, interestingly enough, right, I started off training mom and pops, weekend warriors, I like to call them. And then I transitioned into athletes, right? Starting to get, once I got my training chops down and some credibility and learned the game, I transitioned to athletes. And it's been the complete opposite transition with this performance psychology stuff because I was already working with athletes, and most people don't realize this, but performance psychology, which is more of the macro concept of getting stuff done, having a goal and obtaining it, is actually born out of the smaller component, sports psychology, right? So sports psychology came first, then they broadened in the scope and realized that, right, people have goals and things they want to accomplish or have the need to perform up to a task in other areas, and so therefore they expanded that. So now I work with athletes in that area, and I'm starting to get more business owners. I'm starting to get more musicians and actors and things like that who have to show up at a particular time in a particular way, or folks who just want to transition from what they feel might be a mundane existence to living their best life. And so I kind of run the spectrum, but mainly right now focused on high performing athletes from middle school to professional ranks. I've worked with some NBA athletes. I've worked with a ton of collegiate NCAA athletes. But my passion really is to inspire middle schoolers to learn some of the stuff that I wish I knew at their age.
Crucial work that you're doing. And I also have a passion for that middle school age where they're sort of formulating their belief systems, because we have a cardiovascular system, we have a nervous system, but we also have a belief system, and a lot of people are never given that context. But if we hit them right where they're molding themselves into adults who can think freely, think for themselves, and give them a belief system that's empowered, that's trusting in their ability to do much more than they've probably been told or been challenged to up until this point, I think it just sets them on a different trajectory. Can we just stay there with the middle schoolers just for a few minutes and kind of maybe just talk about some of the challenges they're facing, some of the desires that they have, maybe some of the frustrations they're experiencing, and some of the fears that they have, right? I love starting all of the different projects that I do with the quadrant model of fears, frustrations, challenges, and desires, because it really hits at the core of what makes people move, right? And the only reason I want to start at the belief system of the middle schoolers is because beliefs dictate behaviors. So if you're going
Right.
to tell me you're into behavioral change, you're definitely going to be looking at the root of those behavior changes, which is at the belief system level. Can I turn the mic back to you and kind of get you to kind of just maybe go in any direction you want to go with it, but maybe stay within the middle school context?
Yeah, I call that the X generate, that X time of that crossroads period of a lot of people's lives, right? They go from these cute, cuddly kids, and then something happens in that 3 year, 2 year span of middle school that either sends them on this way, or like that really stone cold high schooler who just stone face, no emotion, that guard that goes up. It kind of happens there in middle school. Like you said, they start to form, or they actually start to become aware. I say they become aware of these belief systems, right? Because they're forming their belief systems from the time they come out, even before they come out, right? There's some beliefs ingrained in our DNA, and they just start to get even more cemented from that, the age of consciousness. And then by 12, you're starting to say, this is how I'm going to show up in the world based on what I believe. So I like to work with that population, again, to make them aware of what's going on, right? How they work. We know a lot of stuff, but one of the things we aren't taught early enough, in my opinion, is how we work. And so just giving them some context of understanding of like this, these are some of the things that may be happening to you. Like you have your own unique experience of the world, but this is why. And this is how you can use this to form your future, to be informed about some other things that are going to come up as you navigate this space, right? Because that's kind of the time we start to hand them off, right? It's the age of authority, right? I love the way one of the coaches I follow put this, right? And he talks about this period of time, right? There's a period in which you train a child up, right? And I believe he says 4. I believe he says 3, but I break it into 4, right? That 0 to 5 age, I believe he says, is the age of authority, right? That's just do what I say. Don't ask any questions, right? You teach a child, this is authority. Adhere to authority. And then from 5 to 8 is the age of reasoning. This is why I tell you to do those things that I just tell you to do it. Now I start to explain to you, right? And then from 8 to 12, you kind of give them some leeway, right? To make some decisions. This is the age of authority, right? And then that last period, you should be able to hand the child off, he says, at age 12, because they know what to do. Then they know why to do it. They've had some practice doing it with your guidance, and now they can do it on their own. So I kind of think about, opportunities to inform them at the middle school, some of the things that may be coming up. And you spoke to fears and challenges and all those things. Well, they change. It seems like every couple of years now, right? Every couple of years, some things change. And you probably see this in the work that you do, right? We got the challenge of, we just had all the, a lot of the COVID babies go into high school, right? They missed a couple of years of middle school and a couple of years of elementary. And so that comes with its own bag of challenges, right? The high schoolers that are graduating probably missed their freshman year of high school or their sophomore year, right? And so they have their own bag of challenges. And so it just differs. And so I do my best to try to listen, keep my ear low to the ground with a sense of empathy for the young people and try to figure out what they are dealing with at that particular time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, to me, a high schooler is already like moving in a direction. A middle schooler is kind of like looking out and trying to kind of feel. They're just trying to feel into their experience of what it's like to be a student, what it's like to be a friend. Maybe they're in a relationship now. Maybe they have mentors now. And
right.
I think that it's a really fascinating thing to like boil it all down to like a person that has interests and a person that has maybe like influences and our mothers, fathers, teachers, preachers are definitely like right there with us, trying to make sure that they steer us in the right direction. But I often find that asking questions of these 12, 13-year-olds of like, what are you interested in? If you were going to start a business, what would it be about? I was just camping this past weekend with some kids that were around that 12 middle school year, And I'm like, hey, you could start a business this summer, it's possible. I love the idea of pushing our youth to recognize the potential they have to create value in society at that age. And I think oftentimes as parents, we don't really, it's so hard to like see that your kid can like actually make money and conduct themselves in a professional way because you know too much about them, but I think that it's fascinating to like have a conversation of like what is the value that our youth play in society as a greater context. A lot of the inspiration, just to share with you the background or build context for this conversation here, is built around our communities having challenges that they're facing and us needing to ask new questions of our community challenges to create new solutions. And I think that like bringing up behavior psychology and performance enhancement for like that 12, 13-year-old population could really like trickle down to the elementary school students. And you have now middle schoolers who are mentoring elementary school students and high schoolers mentoring middle school students with some structure and some guidance and some like, shape to it. But I just I'm enjoying just going there with you for a few minutes because I do believe that that's like a piece of the puzzle of looking at youth at different ages and different stages, especially for communities that are either low access or have challenges with their education system, not really keeping students engaged, keeping students excited about something that they can actually go to school to explore. So I'm curious from your standpoint, if we were building a curriculum right now for middle schoolers that was maybe like a supplemental curriculum for their middle school experience, what are some of the things that you believe are really important to sort of equip them with from a skill set standpoint?
Well, one of those things is the ability to keep a mind open, right? Or to reopen a mind. Because we come into this world with all these great imaginations. One of the things I do with kids in the workshop, and I do this with adults because the adults really have to relearn it, I should say. Kids kind of get it. They don't know anything other than do it. So one of the things is I ask them about, what's your favorite barn animal? Right. And they'll tell me, oh, it's a cow or X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, show me your cow. Right. With adults, they like are stunned, like, wait, what? Look, show me your cow. What does a cow do? Give me your best impersonation of a cow. Right. And so with the young ones, I can see they'll do it right away. They get full on character. Right. They put on all the attributes of a cow. Right. So keeping that mind open, the creative ability to imagine what you can be and start to walk in that faster and faster is what workshops I would encourage, right? This is the kind of abstract learning, right? We want them to learn the basics, how to read and write and X, Y, and Z, right? But we want them to know the play, but how do you run the play, right? I want them to know how to run the play. And this is why you're running the play, right? Keep that creative mind open. Your environment is going to influence you. How it's influencing you once you become aware of it is up to you. The challenge is so much of what we do, learn, believe is subconscious. And so the programs that I would implement, the programs I do implement is about being aware, becoming aware more of that subconscious operation, right? That inspires behavior, right? Those beliefs drive behavior. So one, how do we uncover what we're believing? How do we choose to believe something different? And in that believing something different, what are we actually attempting to obtain? And that's what I don't think we get told enough of early. We get told if you can see it, you can be it. You can do anything in this world, right? We get told those kind of cliche things, but there's a real tangible operation to doing just that.
Yeah, the science of self-control. I think there's so many distractions right now that people are basically, they have so much noise that they can't even hear themselves think. They can't
Right.
quiet the noise to really focus their energy. And yeah, the science of self-control is fascinating. Just to riff on that for a brief moment, I did this course. I became what's called a CCWP, a certified chiropractic wellness lifestyle provider, which basically just saying that we went through how to eat well, move well, think well, and the science of chiropractic. And basically, the think well portion, a large part of that was the science of self control, or as it was sort of coined, uh, choice topography. But basically, you're writing down what you believe, what you don't believe in one quadrant, and then you're writing down your current reality of like what behaviors are making as a result of those beliefs, and then you're creating an theoretical like what things could look like for you, and then reverse engineering of that, of like what type of belief system would you need to have in order to achieve that
Yeah.
goal, and then turning those beliefs that you would need to have in order to achieve this sort of higher level of function or higher level of quality of life, turning those into affirmations and saying them to yourself over and over and over again for weeks on end to really change that inner dialogue. I imagine
Absolutely.
it's similar to that, but we would have to make it obviously a little bit, I mean, it's pretty simple, but make it more exciting or more interesting. I imagine if the students are going to really actually take that and open their ears up to it. Um, what I'm curious, what are you working on? You said you do these workshops. What kinds of workshops are you like moving in the direction of offering, or where are you at right now with the types of workshops that you're facilitating?
So right now I facilitate high school, well, from middle school up, right? Middle school, high school, collegiate workshops on teaching some of that, right? Some of the submodalities, some of the directives of the subconscious mind. Again, awareness is key, right? That's why my shirt says mindset on awareness. So once we know about some of these things, right, then we're interested. At the middle school level, I'm really just planting seeds, right? Planting seeds because the concepts are like, wait, what? It's like no matter how simple you make it, they've had 10 years of being taught a particular way about a particular thing, right? And very little of it has to do with how they operate, how they move. So it's really about planting seeds at that age. The high schoolers, when I go in, it's like, hey, it's showtime, y'all. Y'all behind the eight ball if you don't know this already. You're about to be pushed out into the world, and you have developed this idea of who you want to be. And if it is who you believe you want to be, and that's okay with you, then great. But if you aspire to do a certain thing, this may be something you want to look at. And then college, we can just look at the results. Are you getting the results you want? And if not, then let's talk about the results you want, like you said, and then we're going to reverse engineer that, right? Remember, I told you about the cow and the characters. So it's not just about, right, the affirmations are a part of it. It's also about the feeling that goes along with that affirmation. How do you put that on, right? If you were a method actor and had to show up as the person you envision yourself being, what would that person say, do, feel, and just be? How would they show up in the world? And there's no time period that has to exist before you to be from year to year. A thought is a split of a second. So you can go from this person that you've identified as to this other person that you identified as in a split second. Now, the challenge is, to your point, over and over with the affirmation, is staying there till it sticks, till that's who you are being on a day-to-day basis, right? And so then there's no longer the need for, I tell teachers, like, I don't want you to have to tell them to stop doing stuff. When they show up and they're a different person, they'll just do it on their own. They'll show up differently. giving them the idea as choice. One of the most interesting things is, right, on any scale, adult, middle schooler, high schooler, is this misunderstanding about beliefs. Can I go there for a minute? This misunderstanding about beliefs. And we get into this, and what most people believe a belief is right or wrong, true or false. Right or wrong, true or false. And we haven't been told enough that we can change a belief. And so therefore our beliefs drive our behavior, because we never were told, hey, you don't have to believe that, because that doesn't have to be right or wrong or true or false. And that concept alone is just like monumental.
Are you saying that people get attached to their beliefs so that they almost become like solidified, and it's kind of like this false, they're carrying around this false belief that these are their beliefs, when in reality these are either limiting them in their reaching their potential, or they just don't serve them anymore. They serve them in a strategic way, maybe from a protective standpoint, to move through a certain stage of life. They had to believe in a certain thing in a certain way, just to make sense out of the world around them. But the world they're living in today, currently, it doesn't line up, and yet they haven't quit. They haven't adapted their belief system to their current situation or to the world they're moving in the direction of. Is that kind of like just starting
Absolutely.
to see beliefs as this malleable, sort of flexible tool set that we can remove some tools, we can add some new tools, we can upgrade our belt, we can kind of start to have we could accessorize our belief systems in a more nuanced way to just be more adaptable and more capable of, I guess, just dealing with the challenges in the moment, in an aligned and authentic way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all of that, right? Once I really grasp that concept, just on a personal level, really understanding. Again, we're not taught, because most people, right? Back to the first part of your question, most people believe they are their beliefs, right? That's one of the directives of the subconscious mind and ego. Is I believe I am my beliefs, because my belief keeps me alive. And the sole purpose of your brain is to keep you alive. And so we create these beliefs and these ideas, beliefs, because a belief. So let me give you my definition of belief, right? My definition of a belief is an idea attached to a strong emotion, right? So nowhere in there is it true or false, right or wrong. It's just an idea, a concept that you feel strongly about. Whether it's true or false is irrelevant, right? Who's to say, right? But in saying that, right, we create these beliefs and we all do it. So I'm not saying like I'm up here hovering like I figured it out, I got the key, right? We all create these beliefs that either propel us towards what we want, or they hold us back, or they shift directions, right? And some of them change based on experience, based on timing, based on whatever. So the more we become aware by looking at our results, because the results will tell you the tale. The results will always reinforce the belief. So once we look at the results, then we can say, oh, I might be believing something. There might be something there that's opposite of the conscious belief I believe I have, right? Because we tell ourselves stuff all the time, like, I want to do this, I believe this, and then when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's like, I don't, right? And I always use weight loss as one of those things, right? Because we see that all the time, right? New Year's resolutions, or somebody will start a program, and it's like, oh, I want to get in shape, I know I can do it, I know this, that, and the other. And then I'll have a hard conversation with them, because guess what? They won't be doing what I've asked them to do. They won't follow the meal plan. They won't do their off day workouts, right? Why? Because there's a belief there. And I'm not here to judge the belief, but I am here to call it out. Because at the beginning, well, it's funny because we talk about, so the results will always tell the truth, right? And what most people do, self included, with certain things is we start with a lot of gusto, which is our willpower, right? Our willpower. And what we don't realize is like willpower is not a long-term solution. It's a very short-term solution. So that's why we get super excited and we're going hard, and then life happens, and then we revert back to what's comfortable, that's clothed around this belief that's designed to keep us safe. So once we excavate what that belief is and hold it up to the light and be honest about it, then you ever see the movie Inside Out? Then you can kind of hold that core memory and spin it around and then say, oh, okay, I wanted it to look like this. Boop, let's put that in there. And so that's kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah, no, it's deep. It's deep. And I think it's getting at the root, and it's something we need to anchor, I think, our education to, actually. I think a lot of what I think can come out of this dialogue from a constructive standpoint is that our youth, it doesn't matter middle school, high school, college, I'll throw that all into youth, even though there are some elder adults that go back to college. But my point is just that what is education really about? Is it about learning, or is it about unlearning? Is it about thinking, or is it about following? And so if we kind of like unpack what you were, or just explore how we can apply the awareness and the understanding that you just broke down right there and deconstructed of how the mind works and how humans move in certain directions based on willpower, which is short term, and then based on their belief systems, which are maybe longer term. How do we embed that into a system, into a bigger structure like the education system, that's not just these workshops, but is also reinforced in the classroom? How do we reinforce that in the classroom? I'm curious if you have any creative solutions on like ways that we can kind of just, I guess, put little breadcrumbs into the classroom experience where, sometimes standing up in the beginning and pledging allegiance is like a patterned behavior that is being, I guess, trained in the behavior of our students. Like, can we train a behavior pattern using this awareness to help people find themselves and to like align more with who they really are and begin to like develop that introspective sort of like, I want to know myself better. I want to constantly be asking myself, is the belief system I have today serving me with my current set of challenges, my current set of experiences that I'm having on a regular basis? I'm curious, like, cause a lot of this came out of so not just go off on a quick tangent. Back when that movie Friday came out and Big Worm was delivering weed in the ice cream trucks to the hood, and they was playing the music, and growing up, all of us went to that ice cream truck and buy the ice cream and be super happy when we hear the music. My thought process, especially seeing the Amazon trucks these days, is that we need like urban wellness advocates that are going out into the neighborhoods that they're actually from, and these could be middle school, high school. Ideally, it's like high school to college age, and delivering fruits, vegetables, movement education, mental health education, mental health support to the people in those communities that just either don't have access or have never even thought to look for access for those things, and just raise awareness by playing some music that's familiar to the community, parking in front of a liquor store, and creating that sort of polarity between the liquor store and this new symbol of urban wellness advocacy in the neighborhood. So what you're talking about I'm always asking myself, how do we embed that awareness and understanding into some education that we're giving out to families to work on within their family structure? Or how are we giving this out to the schools so they can work on it within that classroom structure, right? Because we have to work with the structures we're given, even though we're trying to create a new structure which is more interconnected.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was smiling there when you talked about the school system at first, because I don't, and this might be a personal belief of mine. You don't want a bunch of people running around thinking for themselves. You just don't. If your business is to monetize folks who are sleepwalking or may not be as aware as they could be, then it is not in your best interest to have a bunch of people walking around thinking being for themselves. So it'll be definitely a challenge for something like this. And I think there is some roads being made by individuals to embed some of these, right? You got teachers who do affirmations in the morning, who incorporate certain aspects of curriculum um, into their classrooms. But like you said, why wouldn't, if we know from a science standpoint that this improve self-image or self-confidence, and anxiety and depression is a challenge in our society, and this particular model or method improves or decreases those experiences, why wouldn't that be something that we incorporate across the board, like the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning, right? So to answer your question, yes, there are ways that you can implement this system wide. Would that be done? I don't know. I don't know. But there are ways individuals can do it. And that's the work that you do. That's the work that I am attempting to do. That's the work that others are doing. But there are tools that we can give students to kind of to better. And then to the portion of the neighborhoods and community that you spoke to, um, I'm always thinking about, right, our greatest assets, right? Time, attention, money, or some of our greatest assets, not the greatest assets, but some of our greatest assets. Time, attention, money. So thinking about, where's our community's attention? How are we spending our time? And then how are we spending our dollars? And that is to be able to have some type of wellness impact on a major scale, right? There has to be a benefit, both immediate and long term, that's recognized by the community consciousness in order to adapt this lifestyle. But it's also, and all of that has to be steeped in a greater vision, right? So this vision that we have can't just be me doing my affirmations to better myself, but how does that impact the greater community? What do I want my community to look like? What do I even know is possible? And that's back to that when you're a child saying, hey, this creative imagination is in you, and this is how you shape the world. That it's possible, and this is how you do it. What could it look like? Oh, it can look like that? Cool. This is what we all need to do to make that happen.
Yeah,
It takes energy.
generate. It's all good. Generational wealth is always talked about, and health is wealth, and you don't need to be wealthy to be healthy is something that I like to play with those words. But hearing you speak just now gave me the whole, like, what does generational health look like in your community, and just playing on those concepts of, like, we're always talking about generational wealth is something we don't have, but generational health is something we also don't have.
Right.
And you don't need to be wealthy to be healthy. And this is another piece that's like a misconception. So I guess, yeah, maybe the schools are not the first place to start, but maybe certain individuals within the schools of just like working with them to support them, because they might be on an island doing their work on their own. But I do think what you're talking about is at the heart of how we construct a community wellness program that really reaches the people that we're trying to reach and serves the people we're trying to serve, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
so
Are
yeah,
you able?
brother, go ahead. I'm sorry. I lost your video, but it's all good. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm still here. I'm
Okay.
just doing my parking real quick just to make sure, because downtown Oakland don't play, and I can't afford
I
it.
feel you. I
Sorry.
feel you. No worries. So yeah, I think this is like the segue towards the end of the conversation, where it's kind of just like if we can kind of piece together some of the different awarenesses of this conversation into like maybe a new idea or a creative idea. My thing is like, how could we do a campaign where around like generational health and passing down of generational health being this shiny object or the symbol of desire that people are moving in the direction of, because as you said, there needs to be a monetary incentive maybe, or a financial incentive, but maybe it's just that, hey, if you pass on generational health, good healthy lifestyle practices, self-empowerment practices, ways to help your kids and your family and your community think of themselves in a more positive way, or eat better or move better, that in itself is going to have a financial return, because all of the most successful business people are trying to live healthier lives. They're at least in pursuit of trying to be better versions of themselves.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, right. We always think of a friend of mine. How does the Vernice put it? She puts it it's radio station, right? WIFM, I believe. What's in it for me, right? So we talk about, what is the incentive from a community and an individual standpoint, right? And the challenge is a lot of, feeling good, sadly enough, is aspirational in a community that's fighting for survival. So just feeling good about something is aspirational, right? When it's foundational, when it is not a privilege but a basic need, or a basic element of other societies, the communities, right? So just focusing on, like, how do we even just get out of the mindset of that feeling good is aspirational. Like, we should all feel good, or we could all feel good. Let's get these basic needs met, so we're not in this subconscious survival mode for long
Just
periods
just
of
to
time.
challenge that little feeling part, just because every day I'm having these conversations of feeling versus function, and how people base their health on how they feel, when like 95+% of what's going on in our body can't be felt or experienced. And sometimes our symptoms are actually cleansing symptoms, or they're healing symptoms. They're actually things we need to experience so that we can make better choices, or
Right.
make a move to go to the chiropractor and get in touch with our body, do something out of the ordinary, because our body is screaming at us and actually appropriately sending messages of like, hey, something's not right here. It's actually not that our body's not working right, but it is working right. I think that those are also some good messages to like sprinkle into the self-health literacy education that we're trying to kind of grow and develop right now.
What you just, when you was talking, what I heard is poverty is noise. We talked about how so many people have to deal with this noise. They can't hear their thoughts. They can't feel their feelings. And poverty is noise. I don't have time to sit at a park and feel my feelings or feel my body if I'm worried about where I'm going to eat, if my kids are going to eat, or if I got a duck at this park, right? So all of those things tie in. But the trick is, you can still do those things no matter where you are. And I think that mindset, that I can transform my environment from the inside out. is kind of where we would start with that curriculum, because it's totally counterintuitive to
Yes.
what we're taught.
Yes. Most people see that deficiency and they just focus on what they're lacking, as opposed to being told that, hey, actually, you have the answers to your own problems. You don't need to get them from me or from anybody else. You need to just ask the right questions and sit there with yourself and ask yourself over and over again, what is this pattern that is taking place over and over that I'm observing, and how can I shift this pattern in a sustainable way that's not costly, or that's not taking my small amount of resources, but is actually like coming from this inner abundance of, just striving for a better existence, or, will give me energy if I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll transform my experience of the environment that's outside of me. So before it transforms, I have the ability to transform, which then gives it the ability to transform. And so helping folks understand or unlearn, right, that, the outside influences the inside, recognizing that the inside can influence and does influence the outside. And we're operating in this duality system all the time. And so how do we use that to our benefit? And again, taking that and explaining that at a digestible level of every stage of growth is, I think, the way to kind of get more momentum of this train of thought embedded in different areas and aspects of different communities.
Yeah, I appreciate you going there with me today, brother. I really do. And can you maybe just kind of help give us like a final word of maybe just, what you're working on present moment, what you're excited about, maybe just where people can connect with you. I just want to, a lot of the goal of these conversations is just to highlight the abundance of wisdom and resource that exists within our communities, and then try and connect those for like a greater momentum to take place within the context of like community agents that are changing lives, that are shifting minds, that are making new outlets for people to access resources that were never available before. So I just kind of, that's my final word. I just want to give you the final word as well.
Yeah, you can find me, for any type of workshop or program at frankclaytonjr.com. Got some stuff for the summer for athletes, got some stuff for the summer for young men. Just moving, got a book coming out, Every Young Man, I'm excited about. And, and just promoting and looking forward to keeping up the great work with folks like yourself, Ben. And and the more collaboration we can create, the better. And no matter where we are or who we're working with, just know that, that your work matters. Real quick, I'll just end with a story, right? A little girl walking with her dad on the beach, bunch of turtles on the beach. Little girl starts picking up the turtles and throwing them in the water. They're all stuck, can't get back to the water. And the dad is like, let's go. There's too many. It doesn't matter if you threw those few turtles in the water. And the little girl looks up at him and says, it does to those 3 I threw. Right. And so wherever you are, whatever you're working on, just keep it up. Keep it up. You're making a difference. You're making an impact. I appreciate you in the Urban Wellness Show and all the impact you guys are making, and just, keep up the good work. So
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. And I just want to share a quick story because it's timely. I just got a text message a few minutes ago from my friend whose 12-year-old was filming me this past weekend. There was an owl laying on the ground face down at a campsite, and everybody's crowding around it thinking the owl was dead. So they put a blanket on it, and me being a chiropractor, I'm like, it's probably alive and we can revive it. So I take the blanket off, I adjust its neck, start moving its wings. It starts to wake up. And I put it up on the tree, and now it's like it's back to life. So I think that there's a lot of people that get forgotten about. There's a lot of people that we give up on way too early in life. And it happens in middle school, it happens in high school, it happens in college. But I see the potential in everybody to be so much greater than, it's like people like you and me study the mind, and we study what it's like to stretch people's imagination for what's possible for them. It's like the more people like us who can see beyond the circumstance, who can see the solution, not the situation, or can, see the situation, but also come up with creative solutions that help people move forward or help people move backward or help people move up or down. I think these are the types of stories, because my whole point of telling that owl adjustment story is that all the kids that were crowded around were like, oh my gosh, like, how did that happen? And I'm like, the owl is designed to live and to be strong and to be healthy. It just had a little bit of a kink, in its spine, and it might have fallen out of a tree when trying to learn how to fly, that because it was a baby owl. And we can't just let the owl lay there. We have to, do what we can with the tools and strategies that we have. So anyway,
Absolutely.
sidebar.
No, that's right on point, man. Right? The Bible says, "Can these dry bones live?" Right? We can breathe into things that we think are dead. The more energy we give it. So that's why we want to keep the conversations going. We want to keep the people in our minds and in our awareness, and keep up the work. So you spot on with that.